Hello, and welcome. Welcome to yours and mine Cozy Corner. My name is Amanda, and on this channel, we talk about books, and more books. Hello, and welcome. So, guys, as you can tell from the title of the video, this is going to be my July reading wrap up. And I tell you what, I'm actually excited about this video because if you've been paying attention to me, you've heard me say this kind of repeatedly that this year hasn't been like the greatest reading year. I've had some, good reads, but not as many as I would like. So I feel like this month, um, July, well, technically it's August, but July that just passed, I feel like I've had a much better reading month than what I had previously. So I have a total of 7 books that I read. And what's really excited about the 7 books that I've read, 5 of those books I got off the shelf here. So what I'm going to do before I actually start the wrap up, I need to talk about something else because you guys know me. I got to chit chat with you. We got to chop it up about, stuff other than just, what the video title is about because that would be just too simple. So what I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to put when the wrap up actually starts in case you just don't want to hear me, talk about other stuff. You can go straight to that part of the video. So as I stated in some of my previous videos, I have to work on these shelves back here. I'm not putting myself on a book buying ban. I'm never going to do that because just as much as I love to read books, I love to buy books, but I don't have a lot of space, so I have to take care of that. So what I decided to do was, hey, for every book that I read here off my shelf, I can buy that same amount of book to not necessarily replace them, but that will be the only way that I can buy books with an exception. And that exception is if it's on my to buy book list. And that to buy book list is not very long. I don't even think it's 20 books on there, but those are books that I have already read. I know I love the book. I know I want it to be in my personal library. I just have not come across it either at the right price or in the right condition. There's something that has kept me from getting the book. So that will be my only exception. So like I said, this month I've actually read 5 books off the shelf. So if I go book shopping this month, I can purchase up to 5 books. Now, this is going to sound a little crazy, but because I have been doing well for for a couple of weeks now, and because I've gone to the public library and I've been around those books and I've kind of gotten my feels, I'm not feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to run off to the bookstore, which is just so surprising. I guess it's kind of the same thing like when people say, hey, if you stop drinking, sodas or tea or whatever it is for a month or so, you'll start to feel differently. I never felt that was true for the gym. And I did that thing like 3 months in a row. It was terrible. Anyway, focus. But as far as, with the books, I think I kind of got my feel when I went to the library to check out those books. So anyway, with that being said, I said, well, I need a way of keeping up with how many books I can actually purchase when I do feel the need to go out to purchase a book. So I have this little jar. It's just a jar that I had around the house. I didn't go out and buy it. And what I was going to do was put like some little fake coins in here for each book that I can buy. But I was like, I don't know what it is about always wanting to go buy something because I thought about it. I'm like, why am I going to purchase fake coins when I just can use, real coins that I have that's just, sitting, at the bottom of my purse or whatever. So anyway, I have 5 coins in here. So this is going to represent the books that I am able to buy. So even if I don't go out and purchase a book this month, maybe it will be September, maybe October. I know I ain't gonna wait that long. But I don't know why I just told that lie. It just came out just like easily. I know I won't wait that long to buy a book. But the point is, this will be a great reminder of how many books I can buy. And I can say though, even if I go look for books, I don't have to buy 5 books. I may only get 2 and then have 3 remainder. The point is, this is just going to be a reminder. So again, I will let you guys know, because I told you guys I want you to hold me accountable to it. I will be honest with you and let you know what it is that I'm doing. So anywho, let's put that up. Now, for the people who actually came here to hear about the reading wrap up, here we go. Now, I'm going to tell you, the first book that I'm going to start with, this wrap up may be a little bit longer than the others. And that's because this particular book had me in my feels. Okay. Whew, and I will say, I will try my best not to give any spoilers, but I cannot guarantee that me talking about this book won't have some slight spoilers in it. So if this is a book that you want to read and you cannot stand any spoilers, then this one you might want to skip by. But like I said, I really am going to try my best not to spoil it. And guys, I have my notes here that I'm looking down at. So the book is Queenie. Queenie by Candace Carter Williams. This is a contemporary literary fiction book that deals with a lot of adult themes to include race and mental health. It's 330 pages and it was published 2019. So, quick synopsis here. We have Queenie Jenkins, who is a 25-year-old Jamaican British woman that lives in London. And she works at a national newspaper where she's constantly forced to compare herself to her white middle class peers. And she's also dealing with a long term uh, breakup from, she's dealing with a breakup from her long term boyfriend, who is also Caucasian. Now, that is important in here because, like I said, this book does deal with a lot of race issues as well. So that's an important part. So she is really trying to figure out who she is and how she kind of navigates life outside of this relationship. So whew, let's just take a breath for a second. Okay, overall, I am glad that I did read this book, but I'm going to tell you, I did not think I was going to be able to get through this book. The first couple of chapters, I mean, I wanted to throw the book in the trash, the absolute trash can. This book had me pissed off so bad. And I know pissed isn't a curse word, but I usually don't even use that word. But this book had me pissed off. I was just so angry, and I mean, I rolled my eyes just so much that I thought it was gonna get stuck in my head. Seriously, like, she was just making me so upset. And I didn't think I was gonna get through this book whatsoever. And the book definitely starts off hot. And when I say hot, I mean by like the comments that are made, slick comments that are made by like her future roommates. And we're not even going to talk about the outright disrespectful, blatant disrespectful of from the uncle of the guy who was her long-term boyfriend. He just he said awful things, and then I'm gonna just go ahead and say her ex-boyfriend would say stuff like, well, he's from a different generation, he's from a different time, he doesn't mean anything by it. And like, that's supposed to be okay. It's supposed to be okay for him to talk that way. So the book started off like that, so you already heated from that. And then Queenie herself, I didn't like her. I'm sorry, I didn't like Queenie as a person. She is not someone that I would be friends with at all. And it's not just because she was making like horrible decisions, but it's just the no self-respect. I just felt like She didn't have any standards. She didn't, her morals was questionable. It was just, it frustrated me because I knew she knew better. Okay. And you know this because you see her stand up for herself in certain situations, but then others, it's like, well, what happened? And I get it. I get it that sometimes it can be tiresome always having to stand up and, uh, fight for things, and it can get tiresome. I know that. But you can't just, people out in life is disrespecting you. You can't disrespect yourself. You have got to respect yourself. And I felt like she wasn't, and I knew she knew better. And it was just frustrating me to no end. Like I said, I really did not think I was going to be able to get through this book. And I do have to say, when I started reading it, I didn't realize like how old she was because when I read the synopsis of the book, that's generally when I am going to purchase the book. And so when I start to read it, I don't usually go back to read the synopsis because I know I chose this book, so I probably chose it for a good reason. So it's not that I'm going into it blind. It's just I don't need to read it again because I've already read it, the synopsis. So I didn't really realize how young she was, but that that did probably play somewhat a role, but I'm not going to use that as a complete excuse because she still could have made better decisions than what she made. And like I said, it was frustrating. And I think also, you know, part when you read stuff like this, part of you kind of think of yourself, your own life, the decisions you made. And I know I've made some bad decisions in life. I've made some bad decisions, and it's like, oh goodness, if I can go back and change that. And I think part of that, me getting angry with her, could have been me being angry with my younger self, and thinking about some of the bad decisions I made. Now, there are levels to bad decisions. I ain't make the bad decisions in the levels she did. But yet and still they still were, some bad decision. And I think I just kind of wanted to reach in and shake her because I'm like, girl, your bad decision. I mean, you hitting this thing out of the park. We doing too much. You have got to stop. And she just frustrated me. And then some of her friendships I thought were bad. And then I don't even want to say romantic relationship. I'll just say situationships, just absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. I guess I'm just a person that feels like people people will run over you if you let them. So you have to stand up for yourself. And it's a difference between being selfish and, just having standards and morals and saying, hey, that's not okay. You're not going to treat me like that. And she just wasn't doing that in all, and I'm trying my best not to give anything away. She didn't do that in all aspects of her life. She will only do it on some. And that's, again, the frustrating part because I knew she had it in her to stand up for herself in this area. But in this area, it was a no go. So, anyway, let me move on. Um, One of the things, if a person tells you that they probably need a break, again, I'm not saying I'm right, but I will say probably 99.9% of the time that I need a break mean they don't want to be with you. They don't want to be with you. So don't make a person tell you that twice. If they don't want to be with you, go on about your business and let that person go on about theirs. Don't put your life on hold waiting to see if someone decides whether or not you're worth being with. If they feel that you are, you will not have to do this mental gymnastics. Okay. And this girl was doing mental gymnastics and other gymnastics that I feel that she shouldn't have been doing. Okay. And let's see what else. Her friend. So she has a friend in this book called Cassandra. And I I put this, I bolded this here. I said there are some people that will smile on your face while secretly hating you at the same time. And I really do feel like that's how Cassandra felt about her. Again, I didn't like Queenie as a person. Me and her, we wouldn't be friends. We would not kick it. But I felt like can you not see that Cassandra she don't like you. She don't like you. You know, she absolutely don't. And if she did, that's not the type of friend that I would want to be around either. So to me, she had questionable friendships. She had questionable relationships, situationship. Just all her things were just absolutely questionable. I mean, this book, before reading this book, you have got to be in the right headspace because there are so many things in this book that is triggering. Okay. I mean, so many things that could be triggering. Now, I am glad that I finished the book. I don't DNF books, you know, but this one, because it was so hard, I never thought about DNFing it in the true sense of it. It was just like, I know I'm gonna have to just take a break. I'm gonna have to put this down, you know. Like I said, throw it in the trash, but I'm literally not gonna throw my book in the trash. But I had to put it down for a second. And I honestly, I could have put it thing down and I got back to it like for months because it had me so frustrated. But I didn't do that. I finished it, and I'm glad that I actually finished the book. Now, towards the towards the end of the book, we started to kind of find out what caused some of the trauma in her life. And I think we all, for the most part, probably have some sort of, trauma that we are dealing with in life. But again, I'm not going to say um, that her trauma is an excuse for her behavior. It could be, and maybe an explanation of some of her behavior, but I won't, use it just as an excuse. I think the author did a great job with, like, this book is the poster child of probably why you should seek counseling. Okay. You should seek counseling. And even though I think in this day and time, counseling isn't supposed to be taboo, but in some areas, some culture, it really still is considered taboo. And then unfortunately, everybody doesn't have access to like good free mental health. Like, I know a lot of places that I used to work in the past, you could reach out to a counselor, but you only got 3 free sessions. After that, you had to pay for it. Now, I don't know how much it costs, but if already got bills, and if you don't make a lot of money, you might feel like, I don't have that extra to spend on counseling, even though it's important because it's going to, help you get things in perspective and, learn things about yourself. That's just not an option for a lot of people. And, but to me, this book is a good example of why you should, make your not just physical health, but mental health a priority. Now, something else I would say is that you don't always have to share everything with everyone. I'm going to say it again. You do not always have to share everything with everyone. Everybody doesn't have to know what's going on in your personal life about everything. And I will say, there are some people that will discourage you from getting the help you need because they want you to still be able to deal with their BS. And they know if you get stuff together and you start seeing something from a different perspective, that you may no longer deal with their BS, you know? And then you have others that may have no ill intent. They just don't get it because they don't understand that, hey, this is just a different time. This is just a different way of looking at things. And so they may discourage you from doing something that you really need to do for you. So again, you don't have to share everything with everyone. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to take care of yourself in a healthy manner. You don't need anybody's permission for that. Now, to finally bring this one kind of to the end. Overall, I thought the writing was good. Let me mention this. One of the things though that I didn't like about this book was the flashback. If you wasn't paying like really close attention, sometimes that flashback would confuse you. And you're like, wait a minute, what are we talking about? Where are we at? That part was a little bit confusing. But one of the other things that I really, really did love about this book was that the the author, she did an excellent job at depicting the countless microaggression that was happening in this book. You know, Queenie was she was having to deal with a lot of stuff, and I can definitely relate to her when it comes to some of these microaggression, because I've had people say this about myself. You know, sometimes people love to say, you know, like, oh, why are you so angry? Why are you mad? And all you're doing is just breathing and being quiet. You know, it's like if you don't come in and you're not doing the jig and you're not, cracking jokes or doing all that, what are you mad about? What are you angry about? Absolutely nothing. I'm just quiet. Maybe I'm just tired. Just, and that becomes a lot. It becomes overwhelming. And then if you address it, you say something about it. It's, oh, you angry, or you can't take a joke, and it's like, I can take a joke. That's not a joke. And I'm just being quiet, just like this person's being quiet, this person being quiet. So why am I being asked? Why am I angry? Why am I mad? So Queenie had to deal with that. And like I said, from personal experience, I know what that is. That's very frustrating. And again, she would address some of these things, just not others. Um, Overall, it was a great book. The ending wasn't wrapped up in this pretty little bow. So if you like for your stories to end like that, that's not how this ends. I'm completely okay with that because I feel like it was a realistic ending. You know, it was a realistic ending. Everything can't be wrapped up in a pretty little bow. But I definitely would recommend this book if you like contemporary fiction and you can handle adult themed books. But please go in knowing that within the first couple of chapters of this book, you're probably going to be frustrated. You're probably going to want to throw this entire book away. But if you can push past those feelings and get to the end of the book, you know, um, I don't know how you're going to feel when you get to the end of the book. So, this is actually my question for you guys. When you read a book, if you don't like the characters, if the content of the book upsets you, it makes you angry, it makes you happy, it makes you sad, it just has your feelings all over the place. Is it a good book? Is it a bad book? For me, a book, regardless of where it takes me at on the spectrum, if it is shifting me around, I think that's a good book. I may hate everybody in the book. I mean, I may hate every single character, but if they've made me mad, they've made me, want to scream, or I couldn't stand any of those things, to me, that's a good book. The author has done his or her job by being able to evoke those feelings out of me. But I've heard people say, like, I don't like this book because I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like any of them, so I didn't like the book. Or the stuff they talked about in the book, I thought it was just too much. Da, 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 da. I didn't like the book. So I'm asking you, how do you guys feel about it? How do you judge whether or not a book is good? Please let me know in the comments below. All right. So that is all I have to say about Queenie. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna try to go through the rest of the books here a little bit quicker because I know this video is going to be kind of long. So the next book that we have is Beware. This is book number 1 in the Ace Crow series. This is written by Miss Shanora Williams. It is a dark romance. It has a total of 336 pages and was released in 2014. Now, I have read, I think 3 or 4 other Shanora Williams books, but this is the first romance book that I have read by her. And a quick synopsis here is that we have London, who is a young lady who kind of, had an imperfect life. Um, this is not a spoiler. She's graduating. We meet her brother, and like in the first couple of pages, her brother gets pum pum. Okay, he gets Pum Pum, and then his friend who's with him, Ace, basically has to protect the sister, or chooses to protect her. And it's a romance, so we can kind of, figure where it goes from there. Now, overall, I did think that this book was a good book. And I would recommend this if you enjoy a spicy book and a good thriller. I thought it was a good thriller. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm glad this wasn't the first book that I read by Shanora Williams, because if it was, I don't know. I'm just glad it wasn't the first. And that's because, again, I'm a person that I can read spice, but I will prefer non spice or kind of minimal spice. And this book right here was, in my opinion, very spicy. So, um, but again, it still it was a good book. Now, I'm guessing, and because I don't read a lot of dark romance, I don't know what the answer to this question is, but I felt like the characters, they were hooking up quickly, falling in love quickly, and getting to the business quickly. Now, is that normal in dark romance? I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. If so, if that's normal, then this book, it was on the right path, I guess. If that's not normal for it to happen so quickly, then that's where this book was at. And I made a little note here that I wanted to mention that it just seemed like the change in the male main character that took place, it just happened so quickly. It just wasn't very believable to me. But again, I know that this is, a romance. I guess I got to get it in quickly so you don't have, pages and pages and pages, to give people time to build up and change. So I do understand that you have to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit here. And and I can do that. I can definitely do that for any fiction book. And I did it here. But like I said, just the change in his personality. And I'm just thinking that just seems mighty quick and just not believable. But what I did enjoy about this book is the plot. I thought the plot was good. It wasn't just them humping every 10 seconds, even though I felt like that was happening too. Like I said, overall, I did think that this was a good book. And it was my first romance book that I read by Miss Shanora Williams. Now, I do have two other books on my bookshelf by her that I can't wait to read. One is I don't know if I think it's a romantasy. So a romance and fantasy book. I can't think of the name of it. I'll put it up on the screen. I know the cover's purple. Mortals and something. I can't remember. But I can't wait to read that. And I forget what the other book I have, Bitter Truth or something like that. I don't know. But I have two more books by her that I want to read. And honestly, I want to go through her whole catalog because I just think that she is an awesome writer. And like I say, even though this spicy book wouldn't be something I would necessarily pick out, I still think that it was a good book. Okay, so the next book that we have is Cemetery Lake, which is book number 1 in the Theodore Tate series. This is written by Paul Cleave. It is a suspense, thriller, mystery, detective novel. It has a total of 416 pages and was released in 2008. So, Cemetery Lake, basically, we have a private detective, Theodore Tate, and he is at a gravesite. Bodies are being exhumed. And then we started to notice that, hey, wait a minute, these bodies don't actually belong here. Okay. Now we have to keep in mind that Tate is a former cop and now he is a private detective. And that's because he got some stuff that's in his past that, he basically he had to take on a different job position. So anyway, with this one right here, like I said, the synopsis itself doesn't really give you any details about the book. You're really truly going to have to read it. And I did enjoy the book. It started off fast paced. That pace was consistent throughout the book. However, I'm not going to lie. It it took me by, I would say, the 50% mark to really get into the story, even though it was a fast paced book. And that is unusual in the sense of a mystery thriller type of novel, is that usually I'm already kind of invested in it, but I wasn't. If I was a DNFer, I probably would have DNF'd the book, which I'm glad I did not. But 50% mark, I'm still kind of just like, if I was a DNFer, I definitely would have DNF'd this book. Now, the plot was good and I definitely was entertained. But again, this is where the writing style of the author makes a difference. And it's just that the book just wasn't gripping me. It was fast paced, it was good, but the author just could not get his hooks in me. Just couldn't. But again, I stuck with that, and then something happened. Then something happened after that 50% mark. I don't know what it was, but something switched. And then I was invested into the story. And at that point, I was trying to figure out who did what. And that is rare because I'm usually the kind of, I'm going to go with the flow of the book and see, what happens. No, I was trying to figure out, okay, this person must have done this and that person done that. Completely wrong. I didn't get any of it right. I should not be a detective. I should not be a detective on the case. Your case is not going to get solved. I'm not the right person to help with that. Um, but anyway, like I said, it was good. And then the twist in this book, honey, they didn't just slap, honey. They were kicking, punching. There were so many twists. I wasn't ready. And I want to say, and I could be wrong because I've read a lot of books, but I don't think, don't hold me to this, but I don't think I've ever read a book with the type of twist that was in this book. That I don't know. I don't know that I might be a little off with that because now I'm thinking back to another book. Okay, scratch that. I had one that was maybe a little close. But anyway, there are 5 books in this series, and I do wish to read at least the next book. I can't guarantee that I'm gonna actually finish the entire series, but I definitely want to read the next book in here. And especially since I feel like I have a better understanding of Private Detective Tate, he is definitely that quintessential flawed hero. Okay. Some of the things that he did, you talking about raising the eyebrow. I'm like, dude, you can't be the officer of the law. You probably definitely need to be a private detective because you have some questionable behavior, sir. But anyway, like I said, I thought this book was good. I do recommend it. It does have a lot of adult themes in this book, but I'm really kind of excited to see how far Private Detective Tate will go because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know that there's a bridge this man won't cross. I mean, technically, what he already crossed. I mean, what's left? I don't know. Anyway, guys, think it's a good book. I recommend it. Check it out. Okay, guys. So the next book that we have is actually the only 5-star book that I have for July, and that is The Scammer by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a YA thriller mystery um, suspense novel. It was published October of 2025. I don't know why I thought this came out this year, but I wrote down October 2025. If I'm wrong, I'll correct that. It has a total of 358 pages. Now, I do have a lot of YA books that um, I have picked up, but I usually don't like YA romance book because I don't relate to those books. But I have to say, anything that Miss Tiffany D. Jackson writes, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it because she is just a wonderful writer. I don't even think about like, oh, this is a YA book. I don't think that. I just think, this is just an awesome read. If you have not read a book by her, I'm telling you, you should check it out. I have read, I want to say 3 books. I know Monday's Not Coming. I read by her. Um, I can see the book. It's a with a yellow cover. The lady with the book, big hoop earring. I can't think of the name of it, but I'll put a picture up there. Um, I believe The Weight of Blood. I can't remember, but I think those are the 3 books that I'm thinking about. Anyway, they all were good. And needless to say, this book was good here too. So, just kind of a quick synopsis here. Um, you basically have these college students who are at this historical Black university in Washington, D.C. And then one of the roommates' brother is released from prison, needs a place to stay. So he comes over there with them. And his name is Devonte. And he's an older guy and very, very charming. And he's giving advice to them and, basically kind of growing a following, with them. And things just become kind of cultish is what ends up happening. Now, if you have never read a book by her, I would say that from my knowledge, she says that her books, and I could be wrong, but I believe that she says like her books are not based off of true stories. And even if that's the case, I'm saying they're definitely inspired by true stories. There's not, there's not, well, I'm sorry, I take that back. The book with the yellow cover, I feel like that was definitely inspired by a true story. And then the scammer, from my understanding, was inspired by a true story as well. The other 2, Monday's Not Coming, and the other one, they may not have been. But overall, like I said, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was just wonderful. And this book kind of gave me a bit of high blood pressure. This one kind of gave me just a little bit of high blood pressure, and that's because the things that were happening in the story was making me angry, like most people would be, because I don't like seeing people being taken advantage of. I don't like that. That really irks me and makes me mad. Not everyone is going to stand up and speak their minds, or want to be the one that attention is brought on and say what they need to say. I'm a shy person. I'm an introvert. I would never go out and bully people, or just draw attention to myself. But I'm also not a person that's going to let you walk over me. That's absolutely not going to happen. And when I see that happening to people, it just makes me just, And again, even though this is a story, this was inspired by some true events, and it happens. And I think even when a story is just a story that's not inspired, that's not based off a true story, you know, the author comes up with this stuff just not out the sky. I mean, it's because something like that has happened to someone in real life. So these are young college students. So I understand they don't have a lot of life experience. And it is easy to be manipulated when you're young. And again, just from personal experience, I look back and I think, oh, thank God for covering me, with grace, and then my mom and my dad, my family, because I have made poor decisions. I've made decisions looking back like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened, because this could have happened and that could have happened. Thank God I was covered. You know what I mean? But so seeing this and seeing these young people be manipulated was just frustrating. But it's also makes a great point of discernment. We all, in my opinion, have discernment. Even animals have it. But some of us just either haven't sharpened that discernment, or we just ignore it. But I strongly believe that, I mean, unless someone is mentally incapable of, you know, thinking a certain way, we have it, use it. You know, one thing that one of my exes told me before, he said, sometimes women, you guys are just too nice and you try not to hurt people's feelings at your own detriment. You know, sometimes you just got to say what you got to say and move on. And that is so true in this book. When you know something's not right, it doesn't make sense, because something that happened in this book, and I think happens in life too, is sometimes people will sprinkle a little bit of truth and with a whole bunch of BS. And then it gets you kind of like a little confused, because you're like, well, they do kind of got a point on that. Well, you know what? You are kind of right on that. Yeah, there's bits of truth in everything, probably, but most of it is just BS. Okay. And so, like I said, this book had me on a roller coaster, and there's nothing that I love more than for a book to have me on a roller coaster ride. So, good job, Miss Tiffany D. Jackson. Okay, the next book that we have here is Lucifer's Flood, which is book number one in the Reluctant Demon Diary series. This is written by Linda Brooke. It is a Christian fiction supernatural fantasy novel. It was written in 2004, and it has a total of 304 pages. So, quick synopsis. A strange man shows up at the office of language expert Samantha Yell with a mysterious scroll written in an even more mysterious language. As she begins to translate, she discovers an eyewitness account of the war in heaven from an angel who sided with Lucifer. Guys, this is probably the first Christian fiction novel that I read, and I did enjoy it. The just sheer premise, of the book just, was exciting. And I will tell you that this definitely left off on a cliffhanger, and I do plan to read the next book. I want to say it's 4 or 5 books in this series, I think. Now, when we start off, well, let me say this. When I started reading this book, I started reading this book at night when I was sleepy. That is a terrible time to start a book. I don't know why I did that. But this book actually had my attention by page 4. By page 4, I was already invested in reading the book. So, like I said, really good book. Now, I also enjoyed the fact that I did get to learn some new biblical stuff, that even though this book is a fantasy, it's not real of any sort. It's not a theological book by any means, but I was able to learn a couple of things from there, which I thought was actually cool. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, for example, um, she's referenced in the book about like the different spirits. So what she says is, but when they were battered and beaten during the war, they turned. The angel who had once been peace became fear, love became hate, and joy became despair. And again, it's fantasy. That's nothing that's biblical, but that was just one of her ways of kind of explaining why something good kind of turned into something that was bad and that was negative. And I thought she did a really good job of that in the book. Now, this was another example that I appreciated in this book. It says, um, so she's trying to explain Satan, that Satan was jealous of Jesus. And the quote from the book says, no one was closer to the Father than Lucifer except the Son. Lucifer never wanted to be the Father, he wanted to be the Son. And then a demon kind of stops him and says, no, but he said he would raise his throne above God's. We'd heard him say it, another demon reminded us. And then they say, no, you assume he meant Yahweh's throne. That was never the case. He wanted Jesus' throne. Again, fantasy is fictional. This is not real, but that was just interesting take on, why Satan did what he did, right? Now, one of the things that I didn't care about in this book was the jokes concerning women. Now, I know the author is a woman and she was trying to be funny, but I'm gonna be honest, most of the jokes that she was telling that were referencing women, just it wasn't landing for me at all. And that was kind of throughout the book. Now, I do feel that she has a good sense of humor. It's just those particular jokes, just they were not landing, and it was quite a few of them. Now, it's you so in my opinion, you don't have to have read the Bible to understand this book. It will be helpful in the sense that you would know who they're speaking about. So like when they're speaking about Abraham and Sarah, you'll know who they're talking about in the background of the story. But at the same time, knowing may actually irritate you more because again, and I keep repeating this is not a biblical book. It's not theological. It is a Christian fiction fantasy completely made up. So you could really enjoy it or you could be really irritated by this book. I don't know. Now, something I could not understand, and if you are a person that is familiar with, the Bible or what I'm getting ready to speak on, please leave in the comments. Help me to understand this part. So, for example, I was okay with the story about Abraham and Sarah. Made complete sense to me. Because of what I read in the Bible, what she said makes sense. But for the life of me, I could not understand her take on Lot, okay, the nephew. Now, that's not saying much for me because I'm in no way a biblical scholar. But I felt as if she had a strong dislike of Lot, and I'm just not certain why. Because I've read that part of the Bible that involves Lot, and again, I'm no scholar whatsoever. But I just couldn't understand what her strong dislike was for him. So, if you guys, like I said, if you guys maybe know or have some theory or have heard of something as to what would make Lot appear as a negative person in the Bible, kind of let me know where I can go to read that, or just tell me what it is that you know. I'm really curious about that. Now, the only other thing I didn't like about this book was the lack of presence of Samantha. I thought the story would have been much better if she would have mixed Samantha in the story. And I really do hope that she plays a, a bigger part in the next book. But overall, I thought the book was good. And like I said, I'm definitely going to read the next one. Will I complete the series? I don't know, but I will read the next book. Okay, guys, I hope that you're sticking around with me. We're almost done. Two more books to talk about, and then we're done. So this one is Snowglobe. It is book number 1 in the Snowglobe duology. This is written by, and forgive me if I'm messing up the name, So-Young Park, and it is translated by Young Min Lee Comfort. This is a YA dystopia sci-fi novel. It was published in 2020 and it's a total of 384 pages. So, quick synopsis, we have an enclosed, so Snow Globe is the last place on earth that's warm. It's enclosed under this dome, and outside of it, everything else is like a frozen wasteland. So you got everyday citizens that are having to deal with that, and then you have the people in Snow Globe who are actors, directors, basically the rich and wealthy that are within that dome there. So overall, I thought it was good. I'm not gonna lie, there wasn't anything extraordinarily great about the book, but I thought it was good. Now, it was kind of so, to me, I thought, well, what I read was that it was a combination between The Hunger Game and Squid Games. Now, I have never read The Hunger Games, even though I plan to do that, But I did see the movie years ago. Um, I don't know how many movies, but I know I saw at least the first one. I don't remember much about it. And I've seen at least one or two episodes of Squid Games. Again, I don't remember much about either of them, but what I do remember is that there was action. There was a lot of action that took place. And I feel like with this book, it definitely wasn't action packed. So to say it was like the Hunger Games and Squid Games, a combination of both of those, I don't agree with that. I think the only thing that was probably close to that was the YA part and the dystopian part. This, to me, the action in this book was very mild. And it's sad that it was mild because based on the plot of this book, I mean, the characters could have wreaked havoc. They really could have just, I mean, wreaked havoc, but it didn't. It was just kind of mild. And again, it was good, but it was just kind of mild. So this book is a book that is definitely plot driven. And it didn't get very deep with the characters, which, you know, I was fine with that, but everything with them was very surface level. So it made me kind of feel indifferent to the characters. I wasn't necessarily rooting for anyone. Um, it was just kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna just read about what's happening to you guys, but I don't really feel, one way or the other about them just because we just was surface level with all of the characters. Now, I truly do hope that in the next book that, we can find out some more details about some of the people, especially one of the directors. I really would have liked to go on deeper with her to kind of find out why she is the way that she is. And it may be discussed in that next book. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And I don't think say I did mention the translator. This book was translated from Korean to English. Now, I haven't read a lot of translated works. So, again, I'm not an expert in anything, but I'm definitely not an expert in books being translated. But I didn't feel when reading it like there was something that was lost in translation. I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel, any of those things. Um, I just thought the book was just a simple, easy read, mild in action, but nevertheless, still a good book. Um, yeah, so that's all I have to say about that one. Now, the last book that I have. So this is The Final Target by Miss Nora Roberts. This is a thriller mystery contemporary novel, and it was released May 2026, and it is a total of 419 pages. So, quick synopsis: we have Arden, who is a writer, an author, and she basically meets this crazy fan. She meets this crazy fan, and we're dealing with him throughout this book. Now, I thought this book was great. This book was right up my alley and what I needed to read, and I just think it's enjoyable. I don't want to tell you too much about this book because I don't want to spoil this for you. Um, all I will say, I don't want to tell you too much about this. This is a good book. It's a thrilling book. I think that um, most people who enjoy just a good thriller would enjoy this book. Now, the one thing I will say about this book is it started off, oh, pacing. This is my thing. It started off, I don't want to say like slow or anything. It was like kind of a medium paced book, but the book would kind of have dips throughout it. So if you're one of those people, you need the book to constantly take off fast, or you know it goes slow and then maybe pick up. It's not like that. You kind of just had these dips throughout the book, but I still think it made for a great read. And I would encourage you, if you like thriller books, to give this one a shot. Okay, guys, so that's it. Those are the 7 books that I have read for July 2026. And like I said, these books, in my opinion, I would say this month, in my opinion, probably it's the best month that I had this year. I'm hoping that for the remainder of the year, it continues to pick up and I will have more good reads. Um, and of course, I'll be here to share it with you guys. So I hope that you guys have stuck around with me. Hope that you enjoyed the video. If you have, I thank you and I appreciate you so very much. And I can't wait to see you guys next time. So until then, take care. Bye.